Have you ever heard of a civilization so powerful they could carve palaces straight out of mountains, but then just vanished? Today, we're getting into a really powerful cautionary tale from the Quran. It's the story of the people of Ad, a nation whose incredible strength actually became its undoing. This one question, who is more powerful than us, that pretty much says it all. This wasn't just them asking something, it was a declaration. It was their whole worldview. And you know what? It was the very thing that sealed their fate. And look, they kind of had reasons for feeling this way. We're not talking about your average folks. These were master architects, brilliant engineers, and they had legendary physical strength. They genuinely believed their power made them permanent fixtures on this earth, the rightful and eternal rulers of everything they saw. So, where did this unbelievable arrogance come from? Let's take a look at the pillars that were holding up all that immense pride. I mean, the scale of their power was just off the charts. It said their bodies were as strong as mountains, their height so great they practically touched the clouds. And their city, Iram, with its massive pillars, was known as the crown upon the earth. They were so sure of themselves, they actually believed they were masters of nature, that even the wind did their bidding. But into this world of absolute, untouchable self-assurance walks a single man carrying a warning from God. His name was Hud, and his arrival, well, it kicked off a massive conflict. And here it is, the fundamental clash of worldviews. On one side, you've got Prophet Hud with this simple, humbling message. Hey, recognize there's a power greater than you. And on the other side, the Odd are just digging their heels in, all about tradition and pride. To them, abandoning their idols meant abandoning their heritage, and they just couldn't wrap their minds around any force in the universe being able to challenge them. That was the official response from their leaders. It wasn't just disbelief, it was pure mockery. They point to their incredible buildings, the very symbols of their power, as proof that they were invincible. In their minds, Hud's words were just hot air against their stone and mortar. So here's the really crucial point. When the warnings finally started to appear, the people of Ad were completely blinded to them. It's like their pride was a filter, twisting every single sign into something else entirely. So the first big warning wasn't sudden at all. It was slow, agonizing, a drought that lasted 3 whole years. In the first year, it was probably easy to brush off. By year 2, reality starts to sink in, their powerlessness against nature. And by the 3rd year, all that laughter and boasting that used to fill their valleys, it was just gone. Just let that sink in for a second. 3 full years. This massive civilization, with all its strength and power, was being brought to its knees by the simple lack of rain. And this was their first big test. And even in their desperation, they refused to see the connection between their suffering and their arrogance. And it wasn't just the sky sending messages. At night, a strange deep sound would echo through the valleys, but they just shrug it off as the sound of mountains. Then the ground trembled a little bit, and instead of seeing it as a warning, they actually took it as a compliment. They laughed and said, see, even the earth is in awe of us. Unbelievable. All right, so all of this was building up to the final, furious chapter of their story. That punishment they'd been warned about, the one they laughed at, was about to arrive. In their final moments, they are literally given a choice. 3 clouds show up on the horizon, red, white, and black. A voice from the sky tells them to pick one. Still totally blinded by their pride, and now desperate for rain, their leaders mockingly point to the black cloud. They're certain, absolutely certain, that the darkest cloud must have the most water. And for a minute there, they thought they'd won. They thought the long wait was over, that their salvation had finally arrived. People start pouring into the streets, dancing, celebrating. But they had made a tragic mistake. They mistook the storm of their doom for a blessing. Because what came out of that cloud wasn't rain. No, it was the beginning of the end. A furious, screaming wind. And this wasn't some quick storm that would just pass. This was a punishment that would not let up for 7 nights and 8 continuous days. Just a relentless, unstoppable force of pure destruction. This wasn't just a storm. It was a total undoing. The very same wind they used to boast about controlling now turned on them with terrifying power. It literally tore people from the ground, shattered those magnificent palaces they'd carved from mountains, and turned every symbol of their strength into nothing but rubble and dust. So what happens when the wind finally dies down and the dust settles? What's the lesson left behind in all those silent ruins?
The scene is just one of complete and total desolation. The city of Iram, the crown upon the earth, was just gone, buried under a sea of sand. And the mighty people of Ad, once so tall and proud, were now just scattered across the landscape like uprooted, hollowed-out palm trees. And this stark contrast shows you the two ultimate paths, right? The arrogant majority, wiped out by the very force they boasted of controlling. But the few who actually listened to Prophet Hud, the ones who chose humility and faith, they were sheltered from the storm in a mountain cave, saved by the very God the others denied. Prophet Hud, looking out over the ruins of his own people, sums up the entire story with this timeless truth. It's the ultimate moral. When pride grows completely unchecked, it always leads to ruin.
And that kind of leaves us with a question for ourselves, doesn't it? It's easy to look back and judge the people of Ad, but their story really forces us to think about a challenge we all face, navigating that super fine line between healthy self-confidence and that blinding kind of arrogance that makes you deaf to warnings. It's a question that's just as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago.